You know what a grown latchkey kid never says? I need help. We figure it out. We have always figured it out. Nobody had to come running. Nobody had to show up. We handled it because we learned early that waiting was a waste of time. But here's what nobody told us. The one thing that I wanted was a family. And I was so busy figuring everything out for everyone else. I figured that out alone too. I'm Dr. June, Grown Latchkey Kid Auntie. For 20 years, I've coached and trained over 10,000 people around the globe. I ask the questions that you've been avoiding so that you can build a life that not only looks good, but that you actually want to live. And today, I'm asking them of myself. When I was 3, my father had a stroke. He was paralyzed on the right side of his body, and he was right hand dominant. And he was aphasic. And aphasic basically means he had very little speech. The one thing I loved about my dad, he could say yes, he could say no. He said please and thank you. And you best believe that if you said I love you, he was going to say it back. And in an instant, our home changed and all of us were adjusting. Nobody really had a map for it. We were all just kind of making it up as we went along. I remember the first time that I saw my dad after the stroke. He had been gone from home for what felt like an eternity. And my dad was my person. I adored him. He was tall, and anytime I asked him to pick me up, he would. He was a man of very few words. I could talk his ear off, and he would listen. There were so many times that I remember standing in the car beside him. We didn't have to wear seatbelts, and we certainly didn't have to sit in car seats. I would stand beside him while he drove with my arm on his shoulder, and I would just tell him the happenings of life, of the day, you name it. If my father had time to listen, I had time to tell him. When he was gone from our household for this extended period of time, all I knew was that he was sick. I knew that he was in the hospital. I don't think that I really grasped the concept of hospital. First time, very first time I saw my dad, they wheeled him into this very austere conference room. I was doing the thing, spinning around and around and around and around, getting dizzy. And then finally, the social worker, the nurse, somebody came in with my dad. I was so excited to see him. I launched myself into his lap. Daddy! My father wouldn't look at me. He wouldn't say anything. And I'm sure he didn't have a whole lot of speech then, but he just sat there looking off to the side, like ignoring me while I sat in his lap. Daddy, what's wrong? Now, with 4+ decades of living and understanding, my father was likely profoundly depressed. He had no understanding, none of us did, of what was going on other than he had had a stroke. And he didn't have the same command over speech and over his body that he once did. From that moment, I decided that I was going to make everything right. So, whatever anyone needed in the family, I was going to provide it. I learned how to be the comic relief. If my dad needed a shoulder to scale the curve, I was going to be that shoulder. If my mom needed help, like when I was 8, I took over portioning my father's medicine so that he had it. It was easy for him to get to both in the morning and in the evening. And I did that until I left for college. I was so proficient at doing it that I had to train my mother again on how to do it. My mom told us, you have to laugh to keep from crying. So I was going to be the perpetual laughter. I was going to be the light in our household. I became the light because the alternative was too heavy. I didn't do it because I was supposed to. I didn't do it because I felt some sense of obligation coming from any of my immediate family members. I did it because I felt like I had to. That's what I did in order to figure it out, in order to make sure that everything and everyone around me functioned at its highest capacity. It wasn't something that folks told me that I had to do. I did it because that's what latchkey kids do. As a grown latchkey kid, that's what I've continued to do until I interrupted the cycle. While I was figuring it out alone, so is your team. The belonging gap calculator puts a cash money number on everything you've been ignoring: the silent, the self editing, the people who already left you emotionally. It's in the description. Go get your cash money number. I saw gaps and I filled them in my family, in every room that I walked into. If plans needed to be made, I was the one to make those plans. I was always 2 to 3 steps ahead of everyone, whether it was at school, whether it was my family, and then later in life at work. If something needed to be done, I did it. It felt like purpose. It felt like love. It felt like being useful. I became the person that everyone relied on. It gave me a sense of control, and I wore that like a badge. The one thing that I wanted most in this life was children, was a family. But I was so busy being everything to everyone else that my window kept closing. The things that I wanted most took a back seat to the things that everyone else needed. So when my mother was in cognitive decline, I sacrificed those plans to move back home to take care of her. I was in the process of making sure that everything that I needed with regard to my health was in place so that I could begin in vitro fertilization. I was going to be a mother. I wanted to be a mother. Never mind the students that I had taught, the leadership programs, the schools where I was an administrator. All of those things allowed me the opportunity to mother, but it wasn't the same thing as having my own children. I was ready for that. I was taking huge leaps toward becoming a mother. So when my mother's cognitive decline started, I gave up that dream. And because I was the one who figured it out, I moved home and I cared for my mother. I want you to know that this operating system, there's a cost to it. You just don't figure it out and you just don't become everything to everyone else without there being some kind of cost, without there being some kind of trade off where you are sacrificing the things that you want the most. When my mother started on her long journey of transition, I became the kid who knew how to take care of her mother. I figured out how to take care of my mom. I didn't figure out how to take care of my mom and how to care for a child. Please hear me when I say I would do it a million times over. And it cost me one of the things that I wanted most. Both of those things are true. Figuring it out is a skill. It's not a personality trait. It isn't who you are. It isn't an identity. And it's not a life. If you're a grown latchkey kid, then you already know what I mean. I'm Dr. June, and I'll see you next week.